the Global Staffing Programs team here at Google. It's our job to identify and develop top talent for Google. So when I was asked to be here tonight, to sit here with these guys and recognize Michael's story, a former Bold intern, I was very thrilled. I know we're all really honored and excited to welcome Michael, to welcome both Jhanvi and Ketaki Shriram, the producers of the film, as well as the director, Kevin Gordon. So please join me in giving them a nice warm welcome. So I think we all had the pleasure of just watching the film, and those of us at Google who've known you were so proud of Michael and his accomplishments. But I'd love to hear more about how you guys decided to feature Michael and his story.
Sure, do you want to start? Yeah, so Jhanvi and I attended Stanford with Michael as undergrads, and when we heard he was running for office, we were very inspired and excited, and so we met with him over frozen yogurt and asked him if he would be okay with us following him on the campaign trail.
Excellent. And what was your reaction, Michael?
At first, I was excited, right? I thought it would be cool. But then I went home, and I talked to my campaign manager, and he said, absolutely not. You're too reckless. You're going to catch you in a gotcha moment. It's going to ruin the rest of your career. And then I remember talking to my mom, and she said, absolutely, for you, I refuse to be on camera. I don't want them asking me any questions. I don't want to be interviewed. And then if you watch the movie, it's really about my campaign manager and my mom, which is so ironic. They were so against it.
I love how the campaign manager at many points tried to mother you two throughout.
He still does. He texted me yesterday.
Now, Kevin, I understand this was your first feature-length documentary. So how did you get involved in the project?
Yeah, so I knew Jhanvi and Ketaki through film school at Stanford, and they reached out to me about working on the project. And I had a background in social justice work and been looking for something that would reconnect me with that, as well as my first project. And when I heard about Michael, I just knew it was going to be a good fit and a really fun, exciting piece of history to document.
And how long, from beginning to end, like as far as when you guys decided to make the film and you had just decided to run, how long was that process?
Almost 2.5 years. So
Wow.
we started spring of 2012, and we just premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival in April. So that was our first public screening. So we're starting to take it out more places now.
Yeah, I was going to ask what's next. I mean, Tribeca, huge congratulations. It's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
we're taking it out to film festivals, doing special screenings like this, taking it to schools, nonprofits, and also seeking distribution right now. So we don't have any public knowledge yet, but hopefully soon we'll be able to take it to theaters or streaming and other platforms.
Yeah, huge to take on. I mean, for the first of a lot of things for kind of all of you, first time to run, first time to produce, to feature-length film. Where were you guys when you heard that Tribeca had invited you to premiere?
We actually we met up for dinner in Palo Alto, and we brought cupcakes. And Michael knows this now. Whenever we bring dessert, it means something exciting's happened. And so that was kind of how we broke the news. We were all very excited.
Congratulations.
Thank
Now,
you.
Michael, you've become an inspiration. I think from the beginning, you've inspired youth all over the place. And I'd love to hear how you're dealing with your newfound kind of role model status.
Oh man, no, it's difficult. No, I think I'm also been incredibly blessed because the film does a good job of showing just how humble my family and friends are. So my inner circle, they don't care about a Tribeca or a Google Talk or anything. Nothing's cool enough for them anymore anyway. So they really keep me grounded and humble and about, okay, don't get big-headed, okay, but you just had a homicide on your street, what are you doing about that? Okay, these kids still can't read, what are you doing about that? So I'm always pushed to really focus on it. And I guess especially because Stockton is an incredibly complex place, like none of these are easy things to solve, so it's kind of hard to be too caught up in yourself when you have these issues that are really difficult. But I also think that being a role model, to answer your question, because that's what you asked me about being a role model, I think in terms of being a role model, it's I like it because it keeps me really focused on trying to, not being perfect, because I'm far from that, but trying to just be my best self every day. And then when I do mess up or say something I shouldn't have said in a meeting, I learned how to apologize and model that as well.
Mm-hmm. You talked a lot, and you really demonstrated how important it is to build a coalition of people in the community to really affect change. Can you tell us more about how you kind of define civic responsibility for yourself?
Yeah, it's funny, actually. I'm not even answering your questions. I'm answering one answer, then I'm answering your questions.
That's fine. Whatever works.
So no, but I wanted to say, in terms of the coalition building, I learned a lot of that actually as an intern at Google, in terms of building cross-functional team. Yes, I got you. I got you.
I like it.
But I think for me, civic responsibility is number one, making the right decisions as an elected, regardless of the political consequences. But number two is also about kind of empowering the residents, because Stockton is 300,000 people. I represent 50,000 people, but it's a part-time job. I can't be everywhere in the district. I don't live everywhere in the district. I don't speak Spanish well. I don't speak Hmong well. I don't speak Vietnamese well. I don't speak all the different languages in my district that well. So it's really about, how do I engage with everyone? How do I engage with the huge, substantial undocumented population in my district, so they're part of the decision-making process? So in doing so, we've done a lot of coalition building around improving outcomes for boys and men of color, around the kind of just my district in terms of our Reinvent Stockton coalition, around organizing the Black community, because that's the only way in our current political structure in Stockton that the work could get done, because I just can't do it all myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've also referenced it in the film, and since I've known you and certainly read a lot of great things about you, how Martin Luther King really inspired you. And I'd love to hear more just about the civil rights movement and how that's really influenced your leadership style.
Yeah, this is going to be a long answer, but I think there's a couple things. So my junior was such a great year. So I interned at Google, then I went to the White House, then I partied in Cape Town, and then when I got back, I got to reenact this Freedom Rides with the original Freedom Riders. So I spent 10 days with the original Freedom Riders, and we went from D.C. to New Orleans. So we went to this real Montgomery, Alabama, with people who were actually beaten in Montgomery. It was just a really very hallowed and special time. And then from them, I learned a lot. The first thing was that they were all 19, 20, 21, 22 years old when they were on this bus. And Dr. King was 26 when he led the bus boycott in Montgomery. So they were all really young, and they would say things. And then there was one conversation in particular, a man, Bob Singleton, he's a professor at LMU now. We brought him out to Stockton for Black History Month, and we were on the back of the bus, and I'm cracking jokes, and he was just staring at me. So I'm staring back at him, I'm like, okay, I'll be good, let me be quiet. And then he just says, young man, and I said, yes, sir. And he said, I was arrested on August 4th, 1961. And I said, okay. And then he said, why is that day important? And I said, because you were arrested, and that's important for my freedom. I would not be on this bus if you weren't arrested that day. I heard you, I was listening. And then he laughed, and then he said, on that day, Barack Obama was born. And then he said, I was 19 years old. I had no idea that the decision I made at 19 would pave the way 50 years later for a kid who couldn't get a cup of coffee to become president. And then he said, what are you doing today so that 50 years from now, a kid in Stockton has every opportunity you had? And I was 20 years old at the time. I was trying to figure out life and what I wanted to do, and that really stuck with me. And then one of my biggest mentors is Marian Wright Elderman, and she's the head of the Children's Defense Fund. She marched with Dr. King. She was the first African-American woman admitted to the Mississippi State Bar. She practiced law in Mississippi. Just this huge civil rights advocate that's been active for the past 50 years doing social justice work. And I was able to be in part of a lot of her programs all throughout college, so I would get these just nuggets of wisdom from her. And the biggest one she said was that it's a privilege to struggle for justice. And I said, huh? And then she said, it's a privilege to struggle. And she said, because you come from a long line of struggle. And then she brought it back from Harriet Tubman, who couldn't read, but somehow knew how to read the stars and outsmarted everyone to free people. And she just went down throughout history. And then she said, justice work is like a baton. It's a privilege to be given the mantle to keep the work forward. So I've just learned a lot from kind of the civil rights movement people in terms of what I've studied, but also those I've been able to have a relationship with.
Yeah. Well, speaking of influence, Kevin, I'd love to hear, I've heard that directors will have a vision sort of when they embark on a project. And then when it's all said and done, for better or worse, that vision has sort of shifted and it's played out differently. Was there anything that's different about the narrative that we saw than kind of what you thought it might look like?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say, stylistically, we wanted the film to fit into this long traditional political campaign documentaries, which are all kind of that run and gun, chasing the candidate kind of look. But as far as what we thought the storyline was going to be, we definitely thought the opponent was going to be a bigger part of the story.
Yeah.
And he turned out not to be. And, the bigger challenge, was, the problems facing the city as well as Michael's own, transformation over the course of the campaign. And the other big surprise was the campaign manager, because Nick, first day, when we were there, he didn't even want me to film the meeting he was having with Michael. He was like, oh, no, it's too high level. And then by the end, he was like, okay, well, you can film just this. And then it just kept growing until he completely opened up to us about his entire life. And I'd say his backstory and his motivation was the biggest surprise in the film. And then Michael's mom, as Michael said, she wasn't on board at first, and she had this really amazing ability to sense when the camera was on her. Even if I was on the other side of the room, she would just turn around, and I was like, okay, don't film. But she gave us just enough to have this tremendous arc that I think is a beautiful part of the film.
Yeah. Can you guys tell us about the title, True Son?
Yeah, we read about Michael being sort of the true son returning to Stockton, and we thought that was a really interesting parallel and kind of reflected a lot of the themes in the film. And we sort of sat down and had a discussion about what the title should be, and we were kind of like, I think True Son is it. It started out as the working title and then felt like it really fit with the vision that we had sort of all been thinking about.
Celebrate with cupcakes or froyo.
There were some cupcakes.
I figured.
I have a weakness for that.
I do want to open it up soon, so if you guys do have questions, start thinking about, we'll get the microphone to you. Because we do have some interns here in the audience. It's only fitting. We've got Michael, who's a former Bold intern, and both Jhanvi and Ketaki were former interns too, YouTube and Google X. I'd love to hear just some words of advice that you might have for some people here who are interns and what they can do this summer to really take advantage.
Me first?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. I would say a couple things. Number one, have fun. Like, Google is such a fun place. I had the time of my life here. Like, you thought I was YOLO on the campaign. I was in the kitchens. I was on the slides. I mean, my boss is here, Miss Davda. She could attest that I did work, but I made sure I had a good time while doing it. I think Google really, and I think number two, seek out opportunities for growth and to challenge yourself. I remember by my fourth week, I was like leading new hire orientation by myself, which was kind of terrifying because I didn't know anything about anything. And these nooglers were asking me all these benefits questions about their 401ks and their vacation days. And I had to read through the stuff on the little Google internal website. But but seriously, I think those challenges really helped. And also number three, the people you meet in the Bold program are probably the most important part. Like, all my Bold friends are like here, who I still talk to. We talk to after Bold. I met like some of my best friends in Bold, and then even some of the managers and people I work with I still keep in contact with, and they're like really smart, amazing people. So.
Michael walks in, he's like, where's the MK? Okay, you could take someone out of Google, but you can't take...
I was hoping we'd be in crit, because I used to go, they used to have the Mexican food with the free guacamole, and that was my thing, the free guac. But.
So opportunities for leadership and guacamole.
Yeah, I guess I would say go to as many events as possible and meet as many people as you can who don't work in your department. I think that was the most interesting thing for me, was really getting out and meeting all the other interns and all the other full-timers and just learning about what they do, because everybody here has such a unique and different role. And that was, I think, some of the biggest learning opportunities for me was just, going to TGIF and sitting next to someone random and just introducing myself and, learning about what they do.
And I will probably echo the same sentiments. It's just meeting the people around you, the ones on your left and right. And I know I met Marjay, who helped organize this when I was an intern. And you meet some of the most creative and intelligent people here, and you never know it sometimes because you're so buried in your computers or your phones. And so sometimes it's great to look up and talk to the person next to you, whether it's in the MK or even here today. So the people are incredible.
Great. Any questions from the audience? Oh, and he'll bring you the mic.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Jean-Pierre, and I'm also a Bold intern. And I want to thank you all for doing the film, because I know it must have took a lot of work, and then also hearing your inspirational story, because I also grew up from a single-parent household. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I also want to run for office one day. Well, I change my mind every night with my roommates, but they laugh. But coming from a disadvantaged background and like going to college and like being in DC and engaging myself with political leaders, I realized it's really challenging being in an environment and trying to make your way into like the political sphere and trying to get your foot in the door. And I was just wondering, what advice could you give to like aspiring like civic advocates or politicians to like be elected one day in their community?
Man, I forgot Google people are smart, so you guys are smart questions. No, I think a couple things, right? I think number one, it has to be more than just about an office or a position. There has to be like an issue or some policy that really motivates you, because, no one likes like politicians. Like, I don't even like politicians. Like, if you're just a politician, you're not my friend. You're not to work with you. The second thing I would say is that just be authentic. I think oftentimes people think they need to fit into some sort of mold of what it means to be a politician, but especially at a really local level, people value authenticity. They value people who can speak the truth, who can say they don't know when they don't know, who will say they want a mimosa at brunch when they're at a brunch with mimosas, People value that. I think number three, And what I realized, and I think the film does a good job showing it, is that the relationships I built before I knew I was running for office were so helpful. Like all the people that walked and knocked on doors for me were people I had met when I was in high school and I helped tutor them, or there were kids I had mentored, or there were people I had gone out with and we had a good time. You know, so I think it's about just being really caring about relationships in the here and now. And then number 4, I think it's also about building some sort of skill set in terms of what can you do, what have you done? Because oftentimes people look at past, it's just like working for a job. People look at past success, even if it's on a smaller scale, to illustrate kind of future progress. And I would say the skills I learned, whether running my own nonprofit in college or running my own summer leadership program in college or working at Google, on a smaller scale, they're just still the same skills I use now as a politician. The last point I would say is just get really good at working with people, because I'm going to tell you a funny story, and I'm going to stop talking. Before I came here, I was in a meeting around a healthcare clinic in my district with 2 ultra-conservative older white men who I love. So they invite me in. And then he gives me this pen to take notes with, and it says The Factor. I'm like, this is a really good pen, so I was going to try to take it, but I don't want to feed into stereotypes. So I gave him his pen back, and he said, no, you could keep it. It's my premium member O'Reilly Factor pen. I just look at him, right? Because I don't like Bill O'Reilly that much. So I just look at him, and I'm like, whatever, it works. And then and then they both huddle in and like, we're ultra conservatives, right? And then I say, oh, I forgive you. And then we just start laughing, and I say, I'm gonna write really progressive legislation with your O'Reilly Factor pen. But I share that story just to illustrate that oftentimes labels operate as silos and stop people from working with each other, because although we probably don't agree on a lot of things, we agree that people in my district need healthcare clinics, and I'm glad I didn't let their labels as ultra-conservative stop me from spending an hour and a half with them designing a health clinic, because it's important. I'm not sure what the point was of that, but yeah, that's my advice.
And to piggyback off of that, we do have a YouTube channel, shameless plug, youtube.com/TrueSunDoc, where we've gathered a lot of the process pieces of the campaign that couldn't go into the film to show in a web series, how do you build a campaign as a 21-year-old? So how do you do fundraising? How do you do canvassing? How do you bring people together? And so we've got these short snippets on YouTube as well.
So last thing, you're smart, so stay smart. Because seriously, oftentimes when people get elected, they become dumb, I think. Seriously, some things they say just don't make sense. Did you read the staff report? So please just be smart, do your homework, do research, let data guide your decisions, because oftentimes people make decisions off, back when I was a kid, this works, so we're going to do this. It's what does the research say? A lot of people don't do research, so yeah.
So I'm Arthur Peters. I'm a tech intern here, and I found the film very interesting. And so one thing is, first comment, which is, have you considered re-editing all the other footage in this into a how-to? You just have a how-to film, campaign for, campaigning for dummies or something. You can get access to the trademark. Anyway, my other question is, so you're talking a lot about campaigns and this sort of stuff, and I really do want to be involved in some of this, but it's utterly terrifying as someone who would rather talk to a computer than a human. So what can someone like me, who is very good with mathematics, engineering, whatever, what can I bring to a campaign like this?
Oh my man, are you open? Are you 20, do you have 20% time? I'm serious.
Well, no, I'm an intern, but thank you.
One day. No, I think I should let you guys talk first. I go last. I'm gonna talk a lot. So
there's definitely a place for technology in campaigns. I mean, actually, at one point, Michael and his campaign tried to be innovative and have the first. What was it? What did you call it?
Google Hangout.
Yeah. It was a town hall via Google Hangout, which
it was a disaster, but we tried.
Yeah.
We iterate, launch and iterate.
That was actually the saddest thing for me, was that didn't make it in the movie, because that was hilarious. So I think there's definitely some improvements there that can be made.
But Google Hangouts is awesome, which we used it a lot to plan for the
so
film,
many
because we were all
Yes.
in different
Oh,
places.
yeah, we used it
so
a
it was
lot.
successful
We
in some
love
parts
Google
of the film and the campaign.
Yeah, but I just met somebody who's got an app called Organizer, and they are, turning everything that Michael and his campaign were doing into an app that's unbelievable. One of the biggest things was they have walk lists, which Michael's campaign, they weren't even using them when we first started, but then there was always a disaster, or often there was a disaster because they were misprinted, and it has the name of the person you're talking to, their address, their previous voting history. But now there's an app that has it all just on a phone, along with the script right there for people to use. So they're really revolutionizing campaign work.
Yeah, absolutely. So technology, I wish I was going to try to get someone to teach me how to code before here, but I got here a little bit too late. But I wish I had that skill set, because I feel like a lot of stuff I do could be a lot more efficient if I just knew the computery stuff to do. So to your question, I really think there's a lot of things you can do with building apps, with helping people use data and analytics more effectively, in terms of helping people with their websites. A lot of political websites aren't really functional.
God,
You-
it's so bad.
Man.
Even big ones.
But my website's high tech, but everyone's not there yet, you know. So I think there's a whole probably consultancy out there of people who need like really smart techie people to kind of help them make their campaign into the 21st century. That could be your tagline: making campaigns into the 21st century.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else? Oh, the former manager.
Uh-oh.
So, Michael, you could have done anything. You've got such a passion to affect change and also just this ability to connect with people. So what is it? You could have affected change in Stockton in so many ways. Tell us a little bit about why run, and why is this your mechanism right now?
That's another long. I'm sorry, you guys. I don't really talk this long all the time, but these are really thorough questions. I think it was a couple things. So my senior year, I was applying for things, and after my cousin was murdered, I said I was going back to Stockton one day, but it was going to be in like 2020 because I had wanted to make some money, like my mom said. That was our secret plan, or not so secret plan. That was the goal. But then I was really trying to think about what's the biggest way to make an impact now, and I figured like interning for someone or being as someone's staffer could make an impact, but being on city council, even if I lost, just having kind of changing the narrative in the course of the campaign would make a real change, and then I still could apply for jobs and stuff afterwards. So I think that for me that was the question, like where can I make the most impact right now as a 21-year-old with no real experience? And I was like, well, campaigns are really, that's a real meritocracy. You just have to get elected. You don't need to know anything. If you get 51% of the vote, you're now making decisions. So I thought at 21 years old, that was the biggest way to make an impact in the city, especially because when I ran, we had just gotten through 2 years of record homicides. We had just declared bankruptcy. It was just really not the place to be. So I said, oh my gosh, this would be, I'm kind of weird like that. So, oh my gosh, it'd be a great opportunity to kind of effectuate some change. But I'm not convinced that's what it's going to be for you long term. I think at some point I want to do like some philanthropy because I spend all my time calling foundations saying I need you to invest in this, right? So I think there's a role for philanthropy. Also, I teach too full time. So I think at some point I want to open a school or be a superintendent. So I'm really just keeping myself really open in terms of where can I make the most impact. But I do think through 2016, being on city council is probably the biggest way to do that.
I have a quick follow-up, and then we'll hand it to you. But quickly on that, you talk about impact. And one of the things that really struck me in the film is you talk about your life experiences to this point, really teaching you to be optimistic, and that things that start out bad most of the time turn out good eventually. You just mentioned Stockton's homicide rate. It's down like 60%,
down 60%
since you've been in office. Or since...
I was
gonna say,
I wish I could take credit, right? Like I just came down from
take
Mount
it.
Sinai with the Ten Commandments.
but I was gonna, what do you attribute the change to, the decrease?
I do have a small part in it. I'm gonna take a little bit of that.
Take it.
But I think that number one, the community got really serious about the crime problem. So we brought this thing called Operation Ceasefire, which is like the number one evidence-based, not experience-based, not just what I feel-based, but evidence. There's research that shows it works. Based program, and we had it about a decade ago, and was working. And then after we got the homicides down, we let it go. So this time I've been really adamant about institutionalizing it. So that's been really helpful. And then this summer we're opening this Office of Violence Prevention that I've worked closely with the police chief in designing to really kind of figure out how to become the nation's leader in evidence-based violence prevention programs. And we've also really widen our thinking past me to incarcerate everybody. We're just going to throw them in jail, and that's going to solve the problem, but really look at some of the root causes, like what's going on in schools, what's going on in families, and then using data to predict things. So almost like people analytics in terms of what are some of the triggers that make someone likely to be a victim or a perpetrator of crime, and since we have that data, we use it. And I'm a nerd, so it's going to be my quick data anecdote. We found out that of all the homicide victims and suspects in Stockton, most of them had been arrested 6 times and were on probation or just off probation, which means we knew who they were, we had contact with them, and we had leverage to bring them in. So we finally used that data to call them in and say, hey, we know who you are, we know what groups you're affiliated with, we know you guys are beefing with this group, here's some job training, here's some tattoo removal if you want resources and opportunities, but if that doesn't work, here's the U.S. attorney. And surprisingly, people take opportunity when it's presented to them. It's like, whoa.
Novel.
They don't want to be gangsters, yeah. Right.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Allie Bernstein. I'm on the diversity markets team here at Google, and as one of the first people that I met on my first day at Google, I wanted to say I'm very proud of Michael Tubbs. You've come a long way. I've been crying this whole day, so thank you for making me proud. I have a question for you, actually. How have you thought about ways to connect the problems that you're solving here in Stockton to other cities that are going through the same exact problems? Because I think it's really important that some of the lessons that you're learning are lessons that can directly, immediately be applied to areas such as Oakland, Long Beach, California, where I'm from, and other major cities that are having some of these same issues. So I wanted to get your thoughts on what you guys were doing to kind of spread that knowledge.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, right? So I'm kind of cautious because 1 year or 2 years is cool, but like you need 4 or 5 years to really be like, this is working. But generally, like I was just on a panel with the mayor of Oakland, and I told her about ceasefire. You need to institutionalize ceasefire, do it right. I was just at a conference with the mayor of Compton, Asia Brown, this amazing 32-year-old USC-trained planner who's now the mayor of Compton, and I was telling her about some of the stuff we're doing in Stockton. And then there's a lot of networks and conferences and things, and people are so interested in Stockton because of a lot of the challenges we face, and we're kind of like ground zero for a lot of things, whether it's municipal bankruptcy or water issues or homelessness or we're the foreclosure capital of the world or homicide. Like we're like literally ground zero for every problem facing the country. But it also gives us an opportunity to kind of emerge as one of the leaders in terms of how do you solve those problems. So we've been doing a good job, but I think once we have some real concrete wins, we'll do a better job of telling our story and kind of helping it scale. But go ahead. No.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, with regards to the film, we sort of have similar thoughts. We're really hoping to screen the films in schools and churches and prisons and different communities to try and really get youth inspired to take political action or to even aspire to higher education. And when we were in New York, we screened the film at a prison in Manhattan. And I think for all of us, that was really one of the most moving experiences, was seeing how people responded to it and how they were inspired to make a difference. So on the film end, that's what we're thinking.
And I was just going to say that's a big reason why I won it, and that's my big pitch to people in terms of if you help Stockton, you're really helping the country because the problems are concentrated here, and you're not going to find them with as much intensity in other places as you will here. So help me here, and then we'll scale it everywhere. So help me.
Hi, my name's Jessica. I went to UOP, so Stockton has a very, very close.
What year?
2010 is when I graduated. Okay. Yeah, so I was actually just there for a wedding this last weekend, and like it has a very special place in my heart. So incredible movie. What was the job like in terms of what you were expecting, and then like when you were actually in the job, like how did that change?
Yeah, it's funny. So it was a couple screens ago. Someone asked me, was it harder to campaign or to be in office? And I don't know, right? So campaigning was hard because it was like all day, every day. But being in office is hard because it's the same thing. And now I can't just point my finger and say this is what we should be doing. Now I'm the person that has to do it. So if something's not being done, it's kind of my fault. Like I have the agency to figure out how to change it. And probably the hardest part is that the city council, we're so close to the people, but a lot of the things are actually not in our jurisdiction. So a lot of things are in the school district. It's been kind of difficult because you're held accountable for a lot of things you don't have direct power over, but no one cares. So I'm like calling the county, calling the school district, getting on everyone's nerves, trying to not do everyone's job, but I describe the job. People say, what's your job like? And I say, my job is to get people to do the right thing, which sounds very basic, but that's literally my job. Like I need the county jail to work effectively, so I need to work with the sheriff to do the right thing and make sure our county jail is working effectively. I need our neighborhoods. It's difficult though. It's like really impossible because I have no leverage over a lot of people I work with. I'm just a council person, but I'm not the direct supervisor. I don't get to give them. You guys still do OKRs? Is that still a thing? Yeah. I don't get to do OKRs on them. I just tell people when they're not doing their job. But
We should have OKRs.
We should. No, that wouldn't work. Right? Who would get promoted? But I forgot your question actually. But yeah.
No, that was good.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
There was one back here, I think.
I have two questions that are purely curiosity. Do you have to live in District 6 in order to run for District 6?
Absolutely, that's where I live.
So did Dell live in District 6?
Yeah, so District 6, we have this park called Weston Ranch, And Western Ranch is like beautiful, sprawling. It's like not two bedrooms, 2-story houses. Like you would not even think it was in a bad neighborhood because it's just beautiful. But it was also hit really hard by the foreclosure crisis. So there's a lot of home invasions. Like my mom's home was broken into there a week after the election, and things of that sort. So he lived in District 6 as well, but there's like a south side part of District 6, which is what the film really showcased. And then there's Western Ranch, which is only about 14 years old, kind of different income levels, and a little bit of different challenges as well. It's like a bedroom commuter community, so a lot of people that live there work in San Francisco and Oakland, just commute back because the housing is cheaper in Stockton.
And my second question is, there's been a lot of talk of what you are going to do to make the money. What did you plan on doing when you went to Stanford to make the big bucks?
So I didn't really have that planned out. I just knew it was going to happen. So my freshman year, I was like at Credit Suisse for a week, and it was cool. We were eating steaks in town cars. But I was like, I don't care. Like I was like, I don't care. I'm at this computer, and I was just guessing. We were doing like a trading game, and I won. But I was literally guessing. I was like, long, short, long, short, and I won. So I said, I'm not gonna. That's why I got in the recession in the first place. I think someone was doing what I was doing. So I decided that wasn't the move to me. And then sophomore year, I really loved my time at Google. And then senior year, I really thought I wanted to be a consultant and travel the world. So I just didn't have a plan. I just knew that somehow, and I was going to find me like a tight techie friend, and we're going to come up with some startup idea. He's going to come up with a startup idea. I was just going to talk about it for him and get acquired. But I'm in City Council. But I'm happy. It's fun.
Great. Seems like you're doing great work. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ori. I'm a bold intern. And I was wondering, Michael, how you engage youth as a city council member still? Like, do they help you in office? So what is your relationship like with youth today?
It's really interesting because now I'm old to people. Like, so I teach, and I try to engage them, but they really think I'm 35. They never believe me. Like, Mr. Tubbs, you're 33. I'm like, what are you talking about? Read Google. I'm 23. It's in there. But they don't believe me. So that's actually been kind of a challenge because it's kind of hard to engage youth in meaningful ways. So what I've done, I have a really robust internship program where they're given a lot of autonomy, and I meet with them like once every 2 weeks. Like for example, one of my interns, she's like the best, and she like texts me today like, we have a book club meeting on Wednesday. Like, what's the lesson plan? Do I need to pick everything up? Are we meeting tonight? I was like, oh, I'm at Google, and she's okay, I got it. So my interns are like really awesome, self-assured young people, and we have about 10 to 15 of them. So we do like a very intensive leadership training, skill building. We bring different people in and teach them things like professional emails and how to respond. People don't check their emails, how to respond to your emails, and things of that sort. And also, I think I've been really, really good at doing different events focused at youth. But there's always more work that can be done. So actually, Friday, I had this amazing meeting with these two like young organizers who were 18 years old, and they were really pushing me on like, what are you doing for youth? What are you doing for youth? And I felt like I was the man. I was like, wait, whoa, I'm the young councilman. But they were like really pushing me, and that was really inspiring. And it was cool because they felt they could push. Because I created an environment where it was expected that if we're meeting, don't be nice and take pictures. Like, what do you need done? And don't be afraid to be a little bit pushy about it. So I think we've been engaging youth in kind of non-traditional ways and not really organized and structured outside the internship program. If you have any ideas, let me know.
I think we've got time for one more question from the audience. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Jim Keller. I'm a software engineer. I don't have a direct connection to Stockton besides driving through it now and then and occasionally stopping. I was wondering if you could tell us more about what you've been able to do for Stockton and what you think your legacy will be.
Absolutely. Y'all, I'm trying to get you guys out of here at a decent time, but you guys keep asking me these great questions. I think my focus in Stockton has really been around recidivism, violence prevention, and specific things in my district. So on the recidivism front, I received $250,000 from California Wellness Foundation to pilot this back to work program. And what recidivism is that throughout the state of California, once someone gets in jail and comes out, they have a 70% chance of coming back in. And especially in a community like Stockton, that could be a real problem, especially as we try to reinvent ourselves to get past this crime problem. So we've partnered with the California Wellness Foundation, the Michael G. Santos Foundation, to pilot this back to work program, which is the most simple but beautiful concept ever. Because oftentimes when ex-offenders get out, they go through these job training programs, but then they still don't get a job. So they spend a year, they spend 4 months, they spend 3 months, and then they're still unemployed. And now they're even more frustrated because they went in with this hope and expectation that opportunity would be made real for them. They served their time, they did this program. So now it's this program where they go through it and they get a job afterwards. Wow. So, but you understand what a big deal that is for them. And now we're also talking to a couple foundations in the Silicon Valley to figure out if we could teach coding to some ex-offenders, because it's really hard. Like, I think coding is the one sector where skills trump everything. So we're working on that. Number 2, I was able to get ban-the-box legislation passed. So now when people apply for City of Stockton jobs, they don't have to disclose whether they're ex-offender or not. And that's a big deal because research shows that just having a question on the application depresses people from applying, even if they're qualified for the job. And because of that, now the county's looking at an institution that changed. Now different private businesses are doing the same. I worked with the police chief. We did this tougher pawn shop ordinance after all the gold chain robberies. So we sat down, kind of did a problem analysis in terms of what was the problem. And it was because it was really easy for pawn shops to buy stolen goods. So now just added level of scrutiny and security. So now it's not as easy for someone to just walk in with a stolen gold chain and get straight cash for it. We started this Boys and Men of Color Alliance, which is very similar. I co-founded it in culture, which is very much in the same vein as Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative. And we have like the county, we have the school districts, we have almost every sector, health, public health, every sector that works with young men of color. We have them around the same table every month talking about how do we each individually improve our outcomes. And we've seen great changes from that. We had our first select committee hearing, which is where the state legislature came to Stockton to learn about the work we were doing and how to partner with us on that front. We have this Reinvent South Stockton coalition, which for the first time has gotten everyone who's doing, because you know how it is in places that are really have a lot of challenges that everyone and their mom wants to come help, but it's never coordinated or strategic, so there's no real outcomes for it. So working with a couple community partners, we got all the nonprofits, all the church, we got all the players on the same page for the first time ever, moving towards this common vision and agenda. So we have some things today. 2 of the nonprofits we're working with just got $500,000 from Wells Fargo to rehab old drug houses and make them new houses for home ownership. So that's a win. Like we have this summer. I'm gonna be quiet for a second. We're doing this summer literacy program at the Housing Authority. So myself, the University of Pacific, the United Way, and the Housing Authority is doing a literacy program for 1st through 3rd graders in 2 of the housing projects in Stockton. So 100 kids are getting free meals and that extra literacy training because by reading by 3rd grade is such a great indicator for life outcomes. And all that stuff's happened in 2 years, and there's a lot more things in the way and on the pipeline. So it's been really encouraging to know that although everything that needs to happen is not going to happen in 4 years, we have been able to make some progress, and we are making some change. And we have to, especially with the great job they did on the film. The expectations are sky high, so I refuse to have no outcomes and just a whole bunch of screenings. So we're doing work to make sure that when I come to a screen, I feel comfortable, like, okay, I could talk about things because we're actually doing work and not just trying to be movie stars.
And certainly if there's people here that have skills or are interested in helping Stockton or some of the initiatives that we talked
20%
about,
time to
come up
Reinvent
and talk
Stockton.
to
Let's make
Michael.
it happen.
And we're so excited about continuing the dialogue about the film. So if anybody else has questions or comments, do come up to us afterwards. And if you guys are on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you.
I just have to thank Jenny and Whitney because they were here when I was here. They were the intern bosses. So thank you guys. Love you guys. You guys are awesome.
Well, and actually, I want to thank you guys for bringing the story to light. Jenny and I were actually chatting last week. Really excited to have you here, and we've been so inspired by your journey. And it really caused us to think about others who've come through the BOLD program and people who really continue to make an impact. And we wanted to actually present you with an award, the first ever BOLD Distinguished Alum Award. And this really is about people who continue to make an impact in their community, your tireless commitment to Stockton. It's clearly better because of you. And we're really excited to present you with this award. I'm going to make Jenny come up here, but you can just for now sit there on the side. Thank you. Thank you.
Such a big deal. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. And thank you guys for reminding us what inspiration looks like and bringing his story to life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. It's been great. Thank you so much.
For coming out and supporting us.
No. This is so awesome.